The Office of the Parliament celebrates International Women's Day 2023. DigitALL, Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. This celebrated activist uses agriculture to empower and educate women in their health and finances across the globe.
I think that for a lot of us, when we are children, we're fascinated by the world of food and the world of plants. And so from the time I was small, I grew up seeing my relatives planting stuff, people around me. And it just seemed like a natural part of life, like something that everybody did. Everybody's yard had a mango tree. Everybody's yard had a pomerac tree. And things have changed. So bit by bit, I found myself moving into a space that was no longer healthy, no longer occupied the space of us providing food for ourselves. So that was the start of how I went into agriculture. In terms of activism, I just think of activism as seeing a problem in your community and deciding to solve it. And I think I was a busybody since I was a child. I saw things that were really not things that I liked seeing, and I tried to find ways to get other people together to solve them. So I was raising money for senior homes, raising money for the Lady Ho Choi home, trying to do visits to senior homes since I can remember myself. So I think it's just a continuity of caring about what's around you and making a decision to do something about it. So the Alliance of Rural Communities is a network throughout the Caribbean where we support farmers and farming communities instead of selling their produce to take the produce and convert it into something processed. So we started off with chocolate. It didn't start off as necessarily, we were going to form this group. We just started learning how to take cocoa and turning it into chocolate. And that ended up happening in 3 communities in Trinidad, 2 communities in St. Lucia, and in a loose affiliation with a group in Guyana. And so beyond that, we actually started processing other things, making callaloo soup, making brownies with no flour in them. And so we have a bi-weekly delivery in Trinidad, but in the other islands, it's mainly about chocolate. About 2 years ago, we were in the middle of COVID. I was fed up and frustrated with some of the work that I was doing, and I decided to reach out to a farmer in Malawi that I was friends with online, a cocoa farmer, and I said, "Do you want to learn how to make chocolate?" She said, "Sure." And then I got a message from somebody in Uganda who had been told that I was willing to teach chocolate making, and so I said, "Okay, let's see what we can get." I called an experienced maker in Jamaica, and because I needed help, and we decided to start finding other people, other farmers who would be interested. And within about 3 weeks, we had 12 countries online. We started sending machines, the exact thing we had done in the Alliance of Rural Communities. We just replicated it across the Pan-African network. So we're in 9 African countries, 6 Caribbean countries, and we are now affiliated with an African-American community in the US in the Ohio area. We still have quite a colonial system of agriculture and of food production. Historically, over the last few hundred years, basically you take the raw materials from the global south, you ship it to the global north, and it gets processed there. And so there's a lot of change that still has to happen mentally, structurally, and so on, around instead of us sending raw materials of any sort, doesn't have to be agricultural, us holding on to those raw materials and processing them ourselves. We saw a clear financial difference between selling beans, which at the time when we started off, there was a standardized price for $20 a kilo, to making chocolate with them, which multiplies what the community got by about 5, and then if you then go on to do tourism, you get even more. So it's not really just about making money, it's about going back to the system of food where communities get together and we do stuff together. So I'm not putting in a word for just individual entrepreneurship, I'm putting in a word for food production on a community level, that we create community food, we work together to do it, and then we sell or exchange community food with other communities, even if it's far-flung communities. I think what jumps out is the reinforcement of what we call community. There's been a lot of pressure for us to do these things on our own. And if you speak to any individual entrepreneur, you know it's an extremely stressful existence. And so doing something as a community company and getting together is really one of the things that I think has been the biggest success, learning to work together. When I first took the idea to communities, they had had a lot of bad experiences of working together, and people were like, we're not sure, should we do this? But now, you know, we're 7 years in, and groups are stronger, and people know how to talk to each other, and they've learned emotional literacy, and we have learned a lot of skills as to how do you work together with people, even if there are things that are different. Now with Cross Atlantic, we've learned how do you work with people even if they're thousands of miles away, you've never met them, and you have this one thing in common. So I think the skill of community work is really what is the fundamental strength and the thing that we really should celebrate the most in the work that we have done. Both of these groups that I'm with, we are working almost entirely remotely. And what we find is that the access to the digital tools is really quite low. So we've had to teach people, we've had to give people access to computers, to tablets, to working phones, and there's a serious global problem about access to that in rural spaces in general, but in rural spaces for women and girls. So that has been something that we have integrated into our work. We don't have a special program for it. By working in the groups, you learn how to access them. In terms of protection, I would say on a personal level, I have a gaming daughter. And I've seen how incredibly hostile the space can be towards a girl, and how there can be terrible emotional trauma from the way that a girl might get attacked in a gaming space. And I think that there is definitely very little being done in the educational system to teach people about etiquette, values, and ethics within digital spaces. I'm very pro-gaming. I think everybody should be gaming. We should know about games. But alongside that, we should also be figuring out ways to teach people, just as you don't go and kick somebody in the street just like that, right? You shouldn't be able to just go and attack people in digital spaces. And I saw it happen firsthand a few times, and I think we need to really integrate that into a everyday curriculum within the school system now. I definitely think it's a great idea to have a day that we can focus, a day that we in organizations, in our own personal lives, can kind of do our own report card. How are we doing on this issue? How are we doing on sexism? Are we actually tackling it on a systemic level? And really find maybe groups or guides to give us a chance to really look at this a little more closely, and also to celebrate how, despite the fact that there is something called sexism, that oppression does exist, that we as women and girls are doing amazingly in terms of how we are pushing through these obstacles to make sure that the world works for all of us. So I am happy for that day, and I really want to wish everyone happy International Day of Women.
The Office of the Parliament celebrates International Women's Day 2023. DigitALL, innovation and technology for gender equality.